Welcome to the Mark Travis and Derek Christopher podcast. I am Derek Christopher. Of course, I'm here with Mark Travis. Mark, good to see you.
It's good to see you, Derek.
Well, and the one thing too, also that you'll never get rid of is that there're just some scumbags in this industry. I mean, I remember my buddy Troy DeVolld. Rest in peace,
Hmm.
Troy. Troy was in the reality TV realm,
Hmm.
and he would talk about, years ago when Troy worked on some of the biggest shows, Dancing with the Stars, The Bachelor, and whatnot. But then you would get the EP of the show or the creator of the show saying, Troy, I can bring somebody in to do your job for 1/4 of the price, but they have no experience. And it would drive Troy crazy. Or he'd be working at a company and the production company would get, $5 million to shoot a season of a TV show. And the guy that runs the company would say, okay, I'm taking $1 million right off the top for myself. And then you guys have to figure out how to scrounge and make the other episodes for the $4 million. So
Hmm.
you have also just pure scumbags in the industry
Hmm.
who want to
Right.
take advantage, who don't care about the quality, who don't care about the storytelling, and will just try to do it as cheaply as possible.
Hmm. Which is
Which
true,
is,
true
yeah,
in probably every business.
yeah, that's true.
Every business where there's a lot of money flowing
Yeah,
and where it appears that people without talent are getting a lot of that money. And their
yeah.
talent, and a lot of them are, and their talent is getting the money for
Well,
themselves, extracting the money.
I was reading in that article too that they said that Netflix is paying in the ballpark of $300,000 per script, which is a lot more than you're going to make on a spec script if you sell it, unless it
Hmm.
becomes a big hit. So there's a lot to be said about streaming. I know people, they worry about streaming taking over the movie theaters and movie theaters closing. But if it opens up more opportunities for more storytellers, is that a bad thing? It's just a shift in how we view things.
Yeah. It was the shifting landscape, which basically we can't change.
No.
And I think our job, like the little creatures that we are that live on this earth, is to adapt,
Yeah.
adapt and stick with what we believe in and what we're good at.
And you wanted in a way you want Netflix to become more popular, you want Amazon to
Hmm.
become more popular, because those are the studios that are going to shoot budgets that are smaller, that are
Hmm.
medium sized, that may
Hmm.
have casts that you don't know, that may
Hmm.
take a chance on a different genres, different documentaries, different
Hmm.
international films. Universal Pictures is not going to give the keys to the castle to some guy that they don't know that well. Whereas Netflix might take that opportunity. They might take that
Hmm.
chance.
Yeah, they would take that chance. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of stuff that I watch on Netflix, like which I don't think any studio would do,
Yeah.
which is like Black Mirror. I don't know if you watched any of the Black Mirror.
No.
Oh, all done by Charles Booker, who's British writer.
Yeah.
But some of the most unusual, daring. Each episode is a whole different story. Is a separate story. Amazing. I'm saying, who else except Netflix would finance this?
And Amazon, I think it was Amazon picked up. There was a 4-part mini series. It was called, I can't remember the guy's name. It was something about the post office in England, about
Oh,
how, have you
yes.
seen that?
Yes.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
They would never make that here. It was fantastic.
Yeah. And that's why we need Netflix to be doing.
Yeah.
Netflix can afford to do things like that because their big selling point is they have a huge menu that you can go to. You'll find
Yeah.
something in there that pleases you. All you have to do is subscribe. You're not paying for each individual film.
Now, getting into films and getting into the craft of films, you wrote something in an email to me that you need to explain to me. You said you're coming to LA. You said you're workshopping 3 different films that you're going to come here. You're going to work with the director. You're going to work with the actors and whatnot. I have no idea what that means and what that entails. Give me like a one-line explanation first. What the hell does workshopping the film mean, or the script? What is that?
Okay, I have to, first of all, I'm going to jump into the future just for a second. You
Yeah.
are going to see this because when you're invited to, I'm inviting you to come and watch this process, especially at Sean's house. Okay,
Okay. Very cool.
so you'll see it.
Yeah.
Let me explain a little bit. When I work with a director or writer, director, whatever, on a feature film, and I come in as a consultant. I'm primarily a directing consultant.
Okay.
And although I get a lot of it involved in the script, depending on how much they want to hear from me script, but primarily directing.
Yeah.
First step. First step is what I call consultation, which is not a consultation about the quality of the script. It's a consultation between me and the director on what do you see in this movie? How do you see it being done? So I can align myself. I call it an alignment process. Align
Yeah.
myself with the director and understand where he's going with this, so that I can support him or her. Okay, so that's it.
Now let me stop you there for a second. So what if the script is just a big piece of shit? What do you do? Or do you not get even get into that?
No, I do. I do.
You do.
I
Okay.
When I explained to them the script consultation, I explained it just the way I did to you. Here's my
Yeah.
goal. I said, but you're going to understand whatever issues or concerns I have about the script, you're going to hear them.
Okay.
Oh, okay. I said, if, in other words, if something doesn't make sense to me, I'm going to tell you. If I think you,
Yeah.
or if I, this is important, if I think you're going to have trouble in that scene, getting what the
Okay.
scene is on the page up on the screen, because I don't see how that's going to work, I'm going to tell you. Now, our
Yeah.
job is to figure out that you could, to keep you on track for the film you want to make, that these problems get solved now, not
Yeah.
try to get solved later. So, yes, a lot of it will come up. And with the three that you're talking about, these issues are coming up already, even though it's a month away before I even talk to
Yeah.
them. Okay. So, but that's the first step, Derek. After that
Yeah.
consultation, which that's me reading the script and blah, blah, blah. And we talk for just a couple of hours on Zoom, and we can get through that and get ourselves
Yeah.
aligned. The next, which is a bigger step before the workshopping, is a process I call script breakdown and analysis. Now, what that is we go through every single scene of the
Yeah.
movie, and we are so tough. We, I mean myself and the writer, director, on the every single scene. Why is this scene in the movie? What would happen if we
Okay.
took it out of the movie? What would happen if we put it in a different location? Why is it in this location? Why these characters? And what's the arc of it? And we're really tearing that scene up, opening it up to look at, to discover, and this is how I explain it, why it's there. It's like looking at a car and taking all the things apart and say, "What's this for?" I don't know. Well, then it shouldn't be in there. In other words, we're making sure we understand how every scene needs to work
Right.
emotionally, movement wise, tone wise, everything. One scene at a time, going through the whole script. Now that can take many hours to do that.
Yeah.
Sometimes we can spend an entire hour talking about one scene, but
Right.
we go through that, and so that's over a series of meetings. Okay,
Now, do you sorry, do you ever have it where I remember John Truby and I, we went to go see Rex Pickett. He wrote the book of the Sideways that was turned into the movie.
yeah.
And he then made a play out of it, the Sideways play. And there was one scene in particular that they didn't have in the movie that Rex loved. And he had it in the play, and it was horrible. The scene had nothing to do with anything, but he insisted on keeping it in the play.
hmm
And to me, it like destroyed the play because you totally lost track of what you were even watching. How many
Wow.
times do you have a director or a writer that is so in love with a particular scene that they don't want to get rid of it? Can you get them to, McKee always used to say, you got to learn to kill your babies. Are
Yes.
you able to do that? And
Sometimes. Sometimes.
okay.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
But often not at all.
Yeah.
And I've had I was going to say unfortunate experience. I've had the experience of with a project like that where there are certain scenes and sometimes it's not just a scene, it's a tone. This character,
Yeah.
whatever it is, I see what I perceive as a problem. And one of the biggest problems, which I can just touch on now, is any black hole. That doesn't make sense. Well, no, it'll make sense later. No, well, where? You show me. I've read the whole script. It
Yeah.
doesn't make sense later. Well, it doesn't need to. Yes, it does. And I
Yeah.
explained to the writer, producer, or director, producer sometimes, what'll happen. A black hole like that, something that doesn't make sense. What happens to us, the audience, is we fall into the hole and we're
Yeah.
trying to figure it out. And the movie is still going on and we're still trying to figure it out. And we're hoping to pay. Now, if it pays off, 5 minutes later, fine. And I say, great setup, great payoff. That'll work fine. But many times the black holes Um, I mean, sometimes there was, in fact, there's one in Chinatown that doesn't make any sense. Why is that character there right now? I don't know. Because the writer needed him to be there. So so that happens a lot.
It
But
takes you
in
out of the movie. It takes you out of the story
Yeah,
when that
yeah,
happens.
but those will come up in the script analysis and breakdown. And there are
Yeah.
times when um, I've discussed it with that, and but this is leading into the workshopping where I say I don't think you need the scene at all. I don't think you need it. Blah blah blah. Yeah, I do. Okay, workshopping. I'm going to go because this is your question.
Okay, you've done so even before you get to the workshopping, you've done all of this work. You basically done a script analysis, you've done a story analysis, you've done an outline, you've gone through the whole thing to see what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah. First of all, have I done all that? Yes.
Yeah,
Have I done all of that with the director, the writer? A lot, sometimes not all. All of it
yeah,
depend. Now that depends on, well, can we just get to the workshopping? Yeah, but we got to. So
yeah,
what happens? Let me explain the workshopping a little bit, then I'll tell you how I solved the problem of not having done it earlier.
yeah.
Okay, because one of the things that there is functioning here is time and money. How much time is this going to take?
How much are they going to pay
and
you?
and how much is it going to cost me? And
Yeah.
so I tell them, they go, oh. The workshopping is we go through the whole script again, not in order, but we're going through the script. We're usually in a
Now,
rehearsal,
when you say not in order, what do you mean not in order?
not first scene, second. We bounce around all over the script,
Okay.
one scene at a time.
Yeah.
Now we've already gone through the script analysis and breakdown, so we have a pretty clear idea of what this scene is about and
Got it.
why
Yeah.
it's in there. And now we have that scene, and now we have actors, and we're
Yeah.
in a rehearsal room, or on a location, wherever. But we're in a space that we can rehearse.
Okay. So just
And
take a step back. So by the time you're workshopping, you're actually in a room with the director, with the writer, with actors.
yeah, this has to be done in person. Yeah.
Gotcha.
And which is why I'm going to LA to do work on those three films that you just talked
Yeah.
about, to be there in person. Okay.
Yeah.
So now we're in there, and now it's really interesting. First of all, to make it very clear, the actors we're working with are quote volunteer actors. They are paid something
Yeah.
by the director. However that works out, that's not my concern, really. But they are not the actors that are going to be in the movie. And very
Right.
often the workshopping happens and nobody's been cast anyway.
Yeah.
And sometimes there are some character, that doesn't matter. But these are actors who were there for one, they know what they're there for. They're there to do the workshopping. The workshopping it's very, very simple. The director say, okay, well, we're going to do this scene. And maybe the actors don't even know which scene we're going to do right away,
Yeah.
which is fine. And the director will say, okay, we're going to do this scene. He'll hand it out to some of the actors. You do this part, you do this part, you do this part. So it's really starting with nothing. And
Yeah.
we just have a reading of the scene. Now I'm there as a director, and the director is there as the director. But
Right.
I'm there, I'm actually running the workshopping process, but in a very sort of subtle way. So there'll be a reading of the scene, which I just listen to. I make no comments. I just listen to it.
Yeah.
And then the director, however he or she is directing, will say, okay, let's look at the scene. Let's get the scene up on its feet. The goal is to get the scene up on its feet and
Now, in your
working
head,
brilliantly.
are, are you storyboarding this in your head? Are you
Mm-mm,
imagining what the
mm-mm.
shots are, what the staging is?
Okay, I have to stop you for a second.
Yeah.
Let's not use, oh no, you can use the word. Let's not bring up the concept of storyboarding. Storyboarding is for the camera. We're not
But
even
I'm just thinking
talking.
visually. Visually, do
No,
you see
okay.
what the shot
No,
is?
no, no. See what the shot is. No, no. Visually, I see the scene playing in three dimensions, not even on stage with the proscenium art, just playing in the room. That's all
Ah,
I'm seeing. I am not
okay.
seeing cameras. I'm not seeing storyboarding. I'm not seeing
Ah,
shot.
okay.
And it's very intentional, although there is one or two cameras there running, which I can explain. We're not talking about cameras.
Yeah.
We're talking about something that Mark Rydell, when I was working for him many years ago, said to me. He said, making a film is very easy. Here's what you do. You create an event, right?
Yeah.
Which is the scene. You film the event, and then you edit it together and you create another version of that event that's dynamic. And he
Yeah.
said, but if the event you create by itself is not working or is not interesting, what the hell are you doing?
Right.
So this is the workshopping is to create the event, even though it's with actors in a room. It's not the right location. Sometimes it's just a bare rehearsal room.
Right.
Sometimes it's someone's backyard. We could be doing, someone's home. When we go to Sean's, it'll be in his home. I know that now. And
Surroundings are irrelevant.
irrelevant, but but you have whatever you have. The most important thing is make the scene work.
Right.
Create a compelling scene. And one of the most powerful ways, which gets over to the power of staging, which you and I have talked about that whole program,
Yeah.
is the staging. This is staging. And obviously, with really good actors, the actors understand enough about the character to be able to give a credible performance. But we're really focusing on how to stage this scene to drive it to a higher level,
Right.
which will eventually, Derek, once it's at that level and it's working, what I will do, and I'm there with a camera, which I'll explain in a moment why I'm doing that. But I will talk about, okay, here's a shot you can get. Look at this shot. I will then start seeing shots
Yeah.
when I'm very strict about this. Get the scene working first, then think about how to shoot it. If you start thinking about
Okay.
how to shoot it too early, you are staging the scene for the shots, for the camera, and you are actually losing the power of staging.
But there really is a process to all this. It's not just
Absolutely.
you write a script and we're going to rehearse it, then we're going to shoot it and edit it, and that's it.
Hmm.
You really fine tune every
Yeah,
element, every
yeah,
component of it.
yeah.
So, and it's not just fine tuning every component. All those components have to work together.
Yes, yes. And the workshopping, which comes out of the world of theater, where
Yeah.
theater, no cameras. Theater, staging is everything. If
Yeah.
it's not staged well, and you've seen enough theater, you go, oh, something's missing, something's not working. And
Yeah.
even that scene you were talking about that he wanted to put into Sideways, maybe if it had been staged differently, it would have worked. I don't know. But that's the focus. And besides doing that scene by scene, doing every scene in the movie. Now, with some directors, we've even done a phone call. I said, do you want to do this? Yeah, I want to do that. Okay, we'll stage the
Yeah.
phone call. Because what we're doing is we're bringing the director right to the point of shooting,
Right.
talking a little bit about cameras, but at that point, but feeling that seeing how the scene can work. Now, during that process, average on a 3, 4 page scene, maybe an hour. We'll spend an hour on that scene, exploring this way to say, sometimes changing location.
Yeah.
Okay, this is in the dining room. What would happen if it was in the kitchen? Let's put it in the kitchen. Let's try it in the. It's the trial and error process that can be so expensive during production, and we're doing it outside of production. We're doing it. It was even before pre-production. It's in preparation, so that the director has had the experience of seeing every scene work. Now, back to the cameras for a second.
Yeah.
Um, I have usually one camera. This time I'm going to have two, but that's not important. The cameras that are there are just surveillance cameras. I set them up, and I often control the camera just so it's a record of what we've done. The cameras, from the moment they start reading, let's read the scene, the cameras are rolling.
Now, do you ever really go back and look at that footage, or is it just so you have it just in
I
case you?
I I don't, but the director
Yeah.
does all the time. The
Yeah.
director does, you know, all this video is given to the director. It's his or hers. It
Yeah.
usually gets loaded at the end of the day into a computer or onto a hard drive. Now they can go back and say, okay, there's this scene, the scene that takes place in the cafe. I mean, look, and they can hear the first reading. They can hear
Right.
everything that we discussed. And we invite and encourage the actors to participation, not just acting, but in the process. Is this working for you? What's happening? When she gets up at that moment, what happens to you? Oh, I hate it. Okay, now I'm getting a feeling of how that move is affecting the
Yeah.
another character. All of that is recorded, all of it. And so we say, okay, we go. I think we got it, or we have one final version and we shoot it, but we're not shooting it. We're
Yeah.
shooting it with it's a surveillance camera.
So when you get to the end of a script and you get to the last scene and you're done workshopping a 90-page script,
Hmm.
what's the process then? Is there sort of like an over like a wrapping of everything? Do you do something with the director or the writer that says, okay, we've just done this with every scene. Here's how we put it all together, or here's where you go with it? What's the
No,
process then?
I don't do a wrap up like that. I don't feel like I need to because they know what
Right.
we've done. That
Okay.
director has knows my relationship to the project. Then, first of all, I'm stepping way back. Many times the director would just go on, and I'm not involved at all. But many times sometimes I can be deeply involved or partially involved.
Yeah.
But my relationship with the director is I know this script, this story, this movie as well as you do now, because
Yeah.
we've gone from the consultation to the analysis to the breakdown to the
Yeah.
workshopping and all of that discussion. You and I have gone through so much, and that's why many times I'll get an email. Okay, I'm looking at this scene. I got this thought. What do you think? They know they're talking to someone who knows it as well as they do. And many times my future involvement happens in post-production. Can you come
Well, that
look
makes
at this?
sense.
Look at this cut together. Then I can look and say, yeah, but you miss there's something missing because
Yeah.
I remember in the workshopping or what we talked about, and I can say I'm missing that. You're right. Okay. In other words, they have an ally
Right.
in me as they're going into post-production, seeing a script, and sometimes, like recently, even discussing, here's what the studio wants, and I'm struggling with it. What thoughts do you have? No, I haven't even seen the film yet, but I know the film well enough to advise on that.
Yeah. How much of your consulting and your workshopping are you thinking about how commercial this project is? Are you thinking
No,
this is going to make money, this is not going to make money, if you do
no,
this it might make more money?
no.
Okay, it's just purely
But
artistic, purely creative,
purely emotional,
emotional. Okay.
emotional, not promotional,
Yeah,
emotional.
emotional.
Emotional. How in,
That's really cool.
how involved am I? How moved am I by that moment with her when she hears that? Ooh, how can we have give a stronger impact? How can we, you know, that's what I'm thinking about because
Wow.
that's the key thing.
Yeah.
Um, if the journey isn't emotional, if the audience doesn't get emotionally involved, my goal is the audience forgets they're watching a movie
Yeah.
and get so involved with these characters by the end they go, oh my god, and walking out of the theater go, I was just someplace else for the
Yeah.
past 2 hours. Beautiful, not thinking about a movie. So that's what I'm doing as we go through all of those stages. And we're talking about that.
Yeah.
And one key thing that I talk to directors about from script consultation all the way through the workshopping process, I can looking at a scene. And there's always a key or a core moment in every scene, which is sort of what the scene's about. We won't get into that, but I'll say to the director, okay, at this moment in the movie, let's say when the scene is over, the scene stops.
Yeah.
What do you want the audience to be thinking, feeling, worried about, curious about?
Right.
Where do you want them? Because all your movie is doing is taking those people out there on an emotional ride.
Yeah.
Where are we in that ride right now? And it's not a graph so much as it is a state of being. I do want the audience to be a little confused because the next scene is going to clarify it. Okay,
Answer
well,
the question. Yeah.
let's go for that. In other words, so we're tracking the results of viewing the film, even if we're not even talking about cameras right now. My cameras will come into that later.
So from the time let's say somebody says, "Oh, okay, Mark, I want to hire you to workshop the script." From the time you get the script and I'm saying in a perfect world, let's say you're in Los Angeles, from the time you get the script to the time you do all your work on it to the time you do your workshopping, what is that time frame? I'm just because I don't think people really have any idea what goes into a lot of times of making a feature film. So just that process alone, what is that time frame
Well,
in a in the best world
yeah, I can give
scenario?
you a rough, I'll go through the steps again. The script consultation can happen within a week easily. I read
Yeah,
the script, we talk a few days later, and we do that. Okay. The script analysis and breakdown process where we're going through each scene can get spread out over days. It's not
yeah,
done in one day. It can be spread out over a month, maybe, depends on how frequently that the person we can meet, but we can
yeah,
do it in a month. But we're going through, 40, 50 scenes at maybe half an hour per scene or something like that, however, or an hour, and sometimes less, but a chunk of time, but I would say within a month. The workshopping process also can take anywhere. Usually, most workshopping, there's about 40 to 50 to 60 hours of work
okay,
in the workshopping.
yeah,
Um, and again, it's averaging an hour per scene. And when you're listening to actors' input, you're trying different stages, you can see the time can just go by, but the time is used, it's very valuable time.
yeah,
So now that can be those hours can be compressed, can be used over weeks. That's fine, that's no problem. Or it can be compressed like to within maybe a week. It could be
yeah.
done with a week, which is what's happening when I go to LA. We're doing it within a week, but we're working every day.
That's got to be exhausting, though.
It is.
I mean, because you're putting
It's
yourself in that story.
yeah, it's exhausting. Yet there's something about it for me, for the
Yeah,
director. Every time I've done this for the director and for the actors,
yeah,
exhausting, but
yeah,
thrilling because you
yeah,
feel like you're making a movie. You
yeah,
really in one of the last times I did this, the director said, I I'm tired. I feel like I made the whole movie.
yeah,
I feel like I'm in production. I said, good. That's
yeah,
what it should feel like. Although although what you've gained from this, you haven't shot anything yet.
yeah.
Which, although you have it on that other little camera, but other than that, so it can be. So that's sort of a time frame. The one that eats up a lot of time is the script analysis and breakdown.
Sure.
And what I do, because lots of times that's where people don't want to spend that time, I weave that into the workshopping.
Yeah.
Okay, this scene. Okay, why is this scene in the movie again? I'll say that. And we'll have in other words, a lot of those questions, if there are black holes or something in the scene, I'll say we got a black hole here, but I think I know how to fix it. No, but I'll fix it with the staging. So a lot of that analysis of the scene, or even if we've done all that script breakdown analysis, I'll bring up again because we're trying to solve problems here.
Hey, can you go to a movie now and just watch a movie and just enjoy it? Or is this all this stuff going through your head, like when you watch any movie now?
Well, this stuff is going through my head if I feel like um, they weren't paying attention.
Yeah. Well, that's
They're
right.
just, yeah.
And
That
every film
that,
is probably going to have that.
but some films which are so beautifully done, I just sit there in great admiration and say, "Oh, damn, that's good.
Yeah.
Damn, that is really good." Or especially if I see a scene or something, I say, and Elsha I'll, I bother Elsha with this. I'll stop the movie. Say, "Do you realize what they just did?
Oh,
What?
you know what,
Do you
Mark? That
really?
would drive me crazy. That
Yeah.
would drive me crazy.
You realize what they just did? There's a big problem. You realize what they just set up and what they solved at the same time? It's really
Yeah.
brilliant." And she's going, "Oh, fine, keep playing the movie." I said, "Okay." But that's what my mind
Yeah.
does do that. And I'm just hoping for, and fortunately it happens enough times, that I'm just going to be so pleasantly surprised by what they've done.
Sure.
Yeah. So that,
That's that's really fun. Well, it's
yeah,
just like when I used to travel with McKee because he always showed Casablanca.
yeah.
And to this day, I cannot watch Casablanca because he stopped it in certain spots. And so now, even if I'm by myself, I want to stop it in that certain spot and I want to analyze and talk to nobody.
Yeah,
Well, in this scene, this is what Rick is doing, and this is what Ilse is doing, and all
yeah,
that stuff.
yeah,
And it kind of destroyed seeing the movie for me, though.
yeah, yeah, it does. I
You know.
know. It's terrible. It's a terrible thing.
Now, I don't know if you saw it was in I think it was in Backstage. They had this article. This sort of goes into what we're talking about, which was the 5 things that screenwriters should study while watching movies. So
Yeah.
now, based on everything you just discussed about how you do your script analysis and your workshopping and whatnot,
Hmm.
you tell me if you agree with these points that they're making. All right.
Okay.
Okay. So their number one thing that you should study while watching is, and this I personally thought this one was lame and stupid because this more is of a research thing. It says study the opening production company logos. Identify which companies are involved in the films you admire. Well, you should do that anytime. If you've got a script or a TV script, you should find the companies that actually produce those kinds of scripts.
Hmm.
There's certain companies that do horror films. There's certain companies that may do rom-coms. You're not, that's just homework. But I don't know if that's something you watch on the screen. I thought that was kind of,
No,
to me, that was kind of lame.
like that, you said there were 5 things. I would
Yeah.
I would put that one at the end of the list.
Yeah. That was
After
number
you,
one.
I know, I put it at the end. After
Yeah.
you've seen the movie. If you're impressed by it and you feel that
Oh, you're right.
then go,
Yes.
why am I looking at those I don't do that. I just
You,
go
Mark,
get the movie started, please. Get
this is
past
what
all,
this is why you're a
or
genius, Mark.
I become intrigued with how people
Yeah.
design logos. Look at all this movie.
Well,
But
it's funny you say that because I did that when I was pitching my unscripted show. If I would see a TV show, I'd be like, "Oh, this is something similar to what I'm doing." I would always wait till the very end credits to see which production company produced it.
yes, yeah, exactly, exactly. That then it makes sense.
You're
Otherwise, it
You're
makes
absolutely correct. Okay, number two was analyze the first scene. Observe how the film hooks the audience from the outset.
okay.
They said the benefit is you learn how to craft compelling openings that can help the person who's reading your script immediately.
Hmm. Well,
Analyze the first scene.
yeah,
What do you
okay.
think?
Well, good. After you've seen the whole movie, maybe even better. But because getting back to your Casablanca story, to be
Yeah,
stopped and go, okay, I'm going to analyze this scene. Really, what you should be doing, going. It's a similar thing. When I
yeah,
say to a director, where do you want the audience to be right now? Right?
yeah.
And there's also a question here with this list. Is this movie you're watching under your control, streaming, or are you in a movie
Right.
theater? In a movie theater, just keep going. Don't get
Yeah.
caught up with any of this stuff, whatever the rest of it is. Allow yourself to experience the movie. If you can stop it, if you could stop it, just stop it. And at the end of the scene, okay, that's the end of the scene. Stop. Where am I now? Don't analyze the scene, analyze yourself. Where am I now? What am I worried about? Oh, this
Right.
is scary. Oh, he's intriguing. She's frightening. In other words, what has the opening scene, where has it taken me to, rather than analyzing this scene is the next part. How did it do that?
Right. Okay. Wow. Okay.
So, in
And
other words,
and you
because
want
your journey as the viewer is really what matters. That's
right.
it.
And I mean, a movie could have a great first scene, and the rest of it could stink.
Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
so I wanted to go back to what you said earlier about the workshopping, which is that if you watch the film all the way through and it has an emotional impact on you, then it's worth analyzing to begin with.
Yeah.
That's when you start breaking it
I'm gonna
down.
add something. And it has
Yeah.
emotional impact on you, then it's worth buying.
Yes.
Put it in your library.
Yeah.
Now I want to study. Now I want to study this film. Good. which is
Okay, now have
where then it's looking at the first scene and
yeah.
what did that. So then the idea of analyzing the first scene makes sense because it's something that moved you or worked for you.
Now, how about this? Number three, note when the protagonist faces conflict. Determine how quickly the main character is introduced to the central conflict. How important is the introduction of the protagonist in the story?
The first thing is the audience. Think
Yeah.
about the audience. And if you're going to bring your protagonist in here, this gets back to my questions. I just ask a lot of questions.
Yeah.
You're going to bring here's a scene. This is when we're going to meet your protagonist, whatever the movie is. By the end of the scene, what do you want the audience to be thinking about your protagonist?
Yeah.
Now, it could the honest answer, which would be intriguing. I don't want them to know that's the protagonist. Great. Okay. So we'll discuss later when you want them to figure out that's who they're following. In other words, I'm going to mislead them into this other person being the protagonist, but then I want to pull a switch. Okay, you can do that. That's exciting. In other words, be aware of what you're trying to do and how you're trying to impact the audience. Then the thing is, the statement you said about the protagonist has a conflict,
Yeah.
which I would guess that conflict might be the inciting incident or something like. I'm assuming. Now we're back
Yeah.
to McKee and all those other people.
Right.
Um, and so what was the rule? Make it happen as soon as
No,
possible? Was
it
that
says,
it?
yeah, no, well, yeah, I think, and that was Sid's thing too, I think, was to bring that conflict in very early. But I mean, can you think of an example of a film, whether recent or an older movie, where you were just wowed by the introduction of the protagonist?
Okay, I'll give you one. Breaking
Yeah.
Bad, the pilot of Breaking Bad.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Driving the RV. Now he's our protagonist. We don't even know who the hell he is, and
yeah,
he's in deep trouble. And he tries to kill himself in the opening scene. He takes the gun
yeah,
and it doesn't work. But later it goes. It doesn't matter. But we don't know who he is. We sort of know what he's doing a little bit. We know there are dead bodies in the RV, and we think he's being chased. He started a fire and he's trying to get away from that. And we think he's being chased by the police, but it's the fire engines coming. I mean, there's an opening. Is he in trouble? Yeah. Is he our protagonist? I guess so.
yeah,
Is it the inciting incident? No.
right.
The inciting incident is the doctor telling him he has cancer and he's dying,
Ah, yeah, yeah,
which comes later.
yeah,
But it's a flashback, or this was a flash forward. In other words, but that's the opening scene, which actually introduces the protagonist in a very, very compelling way. I'm going to go to another one that you mentioned,
yeah,
but I have to ask you a question. The Godfather.
yeah.
Who's the protagonist?
Well, I was just thinking about the very first scene where the guy comes to the Godfather for asking for his help, and he's basically asking him to kill these people that hurt his daughter.
Right,
But it's
exactly.
but
Who's the
it's justice. So to me, the Godfather is the protagonist because he's the one that's going to bring justice to what happened.
But knowing the whole movie, who's the protagonist? If
Uh,
if Don Corleone, Brando, is the protagonist, well, he's dead by the end of the movie. What happened?
I think Michael starts off as a
I
protagonist.
think he is the protagonist.
Yeah, yeah,
And it's a
absolutely.
very soft entrance. It's actually a
Yeah,
protagonist who basically, in an interesting way, who says to Diane Keaton, his future wife,
yeah.
this is my family. I'm not part of it. I have
That's
nothing to
not me.
do with it,
Yeah.
which is really him saying, I'm not the protagonist here. I am not, I
Ah,
am,
yeah,
no, it's not me. No, no, it's not me. It's not me. And he's sucked into
yeah, yeah.
that role and he becomes the protagonist. Now, there's a very soft, so we're misled by Brando's character that we're
Right.
following him. And then there's a slow shift, which is actually metaphorically or dramatically or cinematically the change in power from one godfather to another.
Yeah,
Because at the beginning, Brando's in power. And
yeah,
slowly it goes to Michael. I mean, and Michael takes power.
Yeah.
That scene when he says, plant a gun there, I'll kill both of them.
Yeah.
And when he says it's not personal, it's
It's
just
not personal, it's
business,
just business.
just
Yeah.
business. But that's a shift. That's a major shift
Yeah.
in Michael, where he decides because he's doing what Walter White is doing, protecting his family.
Let me ask you that because number 4 is look for twists, turns, plants, and payoffs. So is that scene where he says, why don't I shoot them both? Just plant a gun and I'll shoot them both. Is that sort of a shift in
Oh,
the story?
it's a huge shift. It's a
Yeah.
huge shift. If you remember this scene or scenes prior to that, he's been beaten up by that one cop.
The cop. Yeah.
He's, just because he was there and he was complaining, he was there trying to protect his father, and
Yeah.
he gets beaten up.
Yeah.
And that scene where he shifts, they say, "Oh, I mean, look, oh, you're beaten up," and they're still treating him like the kid, the young kid.
Right.
And he's just listening. It's an interesting scene because he's just listening. And we could talk about the staging in that scene, which I do in my staging course, but we won't do that now.
Yeah.
But he's just listening, and he's listening to the others. What are we going to do? Are we going to take a hit? No, we can't do that because of this, that, and the other thing, because we have a deal with that family. And this cop is a dirty cop, and all of that. And Michael says to Robert Duvall's character,
Who says it to his brother? Well, no, actually, I was just going to ask you. So that scene could have taken a total turn because if not for Tom Hagen, the consigliere saying
yeah,
that might work, that just might work. I
that
mean,
might work.
what if he dismissed Michael just like his brother did and said, "Don't be ridiculous. That'll never happen."
Right.
End of scene.
End of scene. But he says it could work. And even Michael says to him, Tom Hagen
We have
character,
people on the payroll.
we have people on
We
the
have,
payroll, don't we? Uh-huh.
yeah,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. He's a dirty cop. Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
yeah,
And he's going, and now the consigliere, who is not biologically a family member,
yeah.
and so he's more
Adopted him as a kid. Yeah,
outside and going, and he's thinking logistically, that
yeah.
could work. That could work. And where Sonny, um,
The older brother,
Jim Conn, yeah, the
James Caan.
hothead,
Yeah,
they're just being a hut. And anyway, that's a major shift within the whole family
yeah,
when he says, do this, because it's a brilliant move. It's a frightening move, and it's a move with huge risks.
yes.
Huge risks. But if that happens, they'll solve the problem, and then they know immediately they have to hide Michael for probably 2 years.
Okay, now as a director and as a writer, what is the most important part of that scene? If you had to pick one element from that scene, what's the most important part?
That scene where he turns.
Yeah. Is it
That
Michael turning? Is it Tom Hagen going along with it?
it's Michael turning.
Yeah.
It's Michael turning. It's Michael in the midst of the chaos, primarily because something happened to him.
Right.
He got beaten up, and he was trying to just trying to help his father. That's all he was trying
Yeah.
to do, and he got beaten up. And gets back to the staging. It's Michael in the midst of that chaos. It's Michael in the midst of a huge, quote, family
Yeah.
business problem where he doesn't want to be.
Yeah.
As he expressed earlier, this is not me, but he's in the middle. And it's staged with him sitting in the middle, and it's all happening around him. And he says nothing most of the scene.
Yeah.
Says nothing. And and I think that I forget the exact lines, but I can look it up. That one of the says, well, okay, we're going to have to leave it. We can't do anything. And he says something. No, we can't leave it.
Yeah.
We can't. Now that's the beginning.
Yeah.
Because he's sitting there and he's creating a scenario, and he realizes these two guys who do want to meet with him. That's part of the scene. They want to meet with Michael for some reason. And he realizes he has an opportunity there to meet with him. And these are the two guys they have to literally get rid of. Totally.
Now, is the character set up so perfectly because you couldn't have Sonny do that? You couldn't have Sonny take out the cop and the mob guy. It had to be Michael.
It has to be Michael. It has to be the guy who doesn't want to be involved. It has to be the
Yeah.
Michael who's
Yeah.
looking
Yeah.
at it yeah, Sonny would look at it with passion and rage, and
Yes.
he's out of control. The irony is, one little irony is, for a long time casting this, they thought that James Caan was going to play Michael,
It was going to be Michael. Yeah.
but a very different Michael.
Yeah.
Very different, Michael. But that's
I love it.
another issue. But yeah, but this person who doesn't want to be involved, and they even laugh at him. Oh, well, yeah, suddenly you're getting tough. Yeah, yeah, big tough boy.
Yeah.
No, no. I just know that this is what needs to be done, and this is how we could do it.
Is that understanding the difference between, is Michael creating a new right and wrong? You know, we have to answer back.
Michael is this to me. Michael is displaying the patience and wisdom and confidence that his
Of
father
his
has,
of his father. Yes, 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 yes.
which we see in the opening scene. How
I
come,
love that.
with the
Yeah,
cat and all that? Okay, yeah, okay, we could do this. And at the end of that scene, he says he will do something to help him. He will help.
yeah,
But that patience, he doesn't get riled up. He doesn't get emotional. He doesn't,
yeah. You're right.
and we see that in Michael. Michael's That's why it's him sitting in the middle of the room just thinking as
Yeah,
all these people are moving around him and arguing and all debate until he says, no, we can't let it go.
I love that. I
They
love that.
want to,
Okay,
I mean, it's very simple. He says they want to meet, and he goes to it very logically. He goes, okay, they want to meet with me, right? And I go, yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Just me alone. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Let's pick a restaurant where blah, 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 this kind of thing. Okay. And let's have, what's his name? I forget the character's name. I know the actor's name. Um,
yeah.
um, Plant a gun there somewhere in
They have
that
one of. It's
restaurant.
very specifically. They have one of those old toilets with the
Yeah,
little water box in the
yeah,
top.
yeah.
Yeah,
Find a place to plant a gun for me, probably in the men's room or something like that. Yeah, okay, we could do that. You do that, I'll meet with them and I'll kill both of them. It's like it's that final line, like not just I'm going to meet with them, which just seems like a
yeah.
stupid idea, but you're going to wipe them out. Oh, yeah, I'll do that.
Uh,
Now you have a guy who's made it, but it is with the patience and the logic,
yes.
and that's what makes the Godfather the Godfather.
Yeah.
That's why
You gave me
Sonny could
such.
never be the Godfather.
You gave me such new. I got to go watch that scene now. You gave me such new
Oh,
appreciation for that scene.
it's a great scene.
Oh yeah. Okay, so here, finally, reflect on the film's emotional impact, which you've already talked about. You said that that's basically the foundation of a good movie.
Mm-hmm. No, so is that the fifth one?
That's the fifth one. It says, assess how the movie makes you feel by its conclusion.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's good. How it makes you feel, you said.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's good.
because it says understanding the emotional journey.
I would suggest, to the writer. This is clues for a writer. What writers should be.
Yeah, for screenwriters. It was an article from Backstage.
All the way through the movie. Reflect on how you feel. I mean, in other words, go
Yeah,
back and look at that movie again
yeah,
and go, okay, how is it? Oh, well, yeah, I remember. Oh, this is where. Now we're just talking about The Godfather now, which is good. Oh, that
yeah,
scene. Yeah, that scene. Suddenly, I was shocked. Okay, there's an
yeah,
emotion. I was scared for Michael. There's an emotion. In other words, how is it impacting me? And be careful to stay away from intellectual analysis. Emotional
right,
analysis is more important than like, oh yeah, this is a great scene, and it makes it's going to make people feel. How did it make you feel?
right.
Because as a writer and director, you can only write a script for one person or direct it for one person, and that's you.
Yeah,
You are the filter, the emotional filter that it's going to go through right from the very beginning all the way until the movie's done.
yeah. Well, and I think everybody they want to see a movie where they see themselves in the protagonist.
Yes.
They want to see what they could be like in those
Hmm.
circumstances. Would you be Michael Corleone or would you be Fredo? Would you be
Right.
Jesse Pinkman or would you be Walter White?
Exactly. Exactly. Or
And
Gus,
that
what's it? Gus, what? And
Gus Fring, yeah, I love one of my favorite
talk
characters.
about cool, and even his death scene.
Yeah,
He's still
yeah,
cool. He's
straightening his
dying.
tie with half a face.
That's right.
Well, another great character. Remember Javier Bardem in No Country for Old Men?
Yeah.
That scared the shit out of me. That guy.
Oh yeah. With that thing, he said, "I'm just going to put this on your forehead."
Yeah,
Yeah, okay. Boom.
yeah. So cold, so calculating,
Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
go, if I were him, that's how I would do it.
Yeah. And in many ways, we want to be that guy.
Yes.
But not really. But yes.
No.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
emotionally.
Secretly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
secretly. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, to have that emotion to be able to do these horrible things that you feel and from his perspective, he needs to do that.
Yeah.
That's who he is.
Yep.
All right, Mark. As always, this has been a lot of fun. I learned a lot. I always learn a lot talking to you. Whenever I talk to
Well,
you, I
I
learn a
learned a
lot.
lot talking to you too. I love your
Yeah,
curiosity and I think, we need to do more of this. We all need to, aside from all the tools and techniques of writing, directing, and acting, which there are
yeah,
tons and tons of people who can teach you a lot of stuff.
yeah.
We all need to explore what is this art form we're in and what's it doing.
And we need to talk about it. We need to keep that community going, and we need to keep
Right.
people inspired and moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Mark. If
Absolutely.
they want to get a hold of you, what's your email? I'll put it up on the
M-
screen.
my email address one again, Mark M-A-R-K W Travis Travis Mark W Travis, all one word, at gmail.com. And then before you ask, the
Yep.
website TIFI TIFI, which stands for Travis International Film Institute. We can talk about more of that some other time. TIFI.us. TIFI.us.
And if you have any questions or comments, you can just comment down below. And then, Mark, you have anything else to add?
I think that's it. Have a great day. Go see a movie.
Go see a movie. All right, guys, take care. For Mark Travis, I'm
Okay.
Derek Christopher. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.